Hello and welcome to Mindset Kitchen. My name is Diana Paliukaitė and I have a wonderful guest with me today, David Horne. David is a founder of Add Then Multiply, a consultancy working exclusively with business founders who want to grow fast. During his career, David raised more than 120 million in funding and bought or sold more than 25 companies. That's impressive, David.
Thank you.
Hello.
Hello.
Such a pleasure of having you here.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much.
So I've given you a little introduction, but please tell me a little bit more about yourself.
Okay, so I trained as a chartered accountant with PwC, qualified in Vancouver, and when I qualified, I told the firm that I wanted to work in a German-speaking office because I did my degree in German. And one day I came into the office and there was a message from PwC in Zurich saying, here's a job. And so in the summer of 1987, my wife and I had been married for 4 years. We hadn't collected up much, so we sold what few possessions we had, packed our clothes into 4 suitcases, got on board an airplane with one-way tickets and a 2-year employment contract, and that was 37 years ago. We ended up staying in Zurich for 6 years, 2 years with PwC, and then I got a job offer from my biggest client, which was one of those job offers you couldn't refuse. So I took it and worked with them in Switzerland. I was the financial controller of the Swiss subsidiary of a US tech company. And then I had the opportunity to move with them to London. And so we moved to London in 1993. My wife is originally from the UK. Her family emigrated to Canada when she was 3. So she has lots of family here. And my dad was born here, so I have dual citizenship. And so we came to London in 93 and have been here ever since. I stayed with big corporates for a while, and then I started working with smaller companies. And between 2002 and 2010, I was the chief financial officer of 2 companies that were listed on AIM, which is the junior market of the London Stock Exchange. Stands for the Alternative Investment Market. And it was there that I started really getting into raising money and buying companies. One of the groups I was with, in a 3.5-year period, we grew our revenue from 1 million to 27 million. So we tripled, and then we tripled again, and then we tripled again. And we did that through raising capital and buying companies. We bought 7 private companies and took over another listed company as well. And then I got headhunted to join another AIM-listed business, and we did the same thing. We grew by acquisition. And then I just got sick of corporate life and decided to launch my own business, and had initially what I call my midlife crisis. I tried to launch a wine business, which was tremendous fun, but not very successful. I still have the wine business today. I'm its biggest customer by some measure, but it's, as my best friend says, it's a tax-effective way to enjoy my hobby. And in 2012, I launched Add Then Multiply, and initially just started out kind of providing CFO services to small companies, and gradually realized actually there were lots of people providing CFO services to small companies, but there weren't very many who had my experience of fundraising and M&A. And so I started to focus on that, and I wrote a book about that, which was really, really helpful, a book called Add Then Multiply. I know you're going to share it.
One of the books.
Yes,
right
one
here.
of the books right there. Thank you very much.
Thank you for giving that to
My
me as well.
pleasure, my pleasure. So I wrote that, and that was a real game changer, and it really allowed me to really focus on this is what I do. And from a strategic angle, it also meant I was able to go back to some of my clients where they were still clients, but it wasn't really exciting anymore. And I was able to say, look, this is what I do and this is what I don't do. So let me find someone else for you who can do what you do. And that freed up my time to go and focus on doing what I love to do, which is working with founders and scaling businesses.
A very fascinating career. And you've been hunted now by me as a guest.
I have
for
been,
that,
and
that particular reason.
I'm delighted to be here.
Thank you so much for being here. So David is no idea as well what I'm going to cook for you. It's I'm building this up as if it's something fascinating or amazing, but it's quite simple. But I call it scrumptious meal. That's
Wonderful.
what I
love scrumptious.
to do. So I am making to you a pita bread stuffed with lamb.
Oh, beautiful.
And marinated tomatoes and slaw with yogurt.
Wonderful.
And some potato veggies that I've just finished cooking.
Fabulous. Well, as you know, I've just come back from Corfu in Greece.
so
this is perfect.
Actually,
this is perfect.
Yeah, it's perfect. You're still
Absolutely.
craving for it.
I'm still craving for it, definitely.
Perfect, because I just, it's a delicious kind of lunchtime meal, and it's always full of flavors. And I thought this guy is obviously well traveled. I don't want something bland and,
Sure.
and simple. I want something quite colorful and flavorsome. I will explain a little bit about my precious tomatoes here because they're sitting in this liquid, but I'll tell a little bit later when I start cooking
Okay.
what they are, because they're just purely my own addition to this dish.
Wonderful.
And
Did you grow them?
No, I did grow last year tomatoes.
Okay.
There are spring onions of mine from the garden.
Excellent, excellent.
But slugs, they are everywhere.
Yes, they
so I
are.
could not just, defend them, and my tomatoes were eaten
Yes, they are.
constantly. Like suck the light out of tomatoes.
Oh,
We're
absolutely.
literally whole.
Yeah, no, my wife has some beautiful plants in our garden, and the slugs just, they particularly go after the ones that have beautiful flowers,
Yes.
and they just destroy them.
Yes. So yeah, it has been a challenge, and I am not a best gardener. I've just started having a garden 3 years ago, so I'm learning a lot and
Excellent.
fighting all sorts
Yep.
of little creatures.
Yep.
Okay, so what I will do, I will read your message, and then just in a while I'll start cooking
Wonderful.
your meal. So I'll show here. I've made early, and I'll explain what this lamb patties. This is a lovely organic lamb.
Beautiful.
It's got enough fat, so it's quite juicy.
And what's the green? Is that mint or?
Oh, so green has mint and coriander.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
So might as well I'll tell.
I'm
So
salivating already.
I've added quite a lot of things in there, because then all the fat and everything absorbs those flavors and really brings them out. So there is mint and coriander. Do you know the spice called baharat?
I don't.
Baharat. So it's kind of like almost Middle Eastern a little bit
Ooh,
spice.
okay.
So it has baharat, and it has cumin, cinnamon, it has paprika,
Wow.
garlic,
Wow.
onion, salt, pepper,
I'm getting really
olive
hungry
oil.
now.
It's everything in there, basically all the goodies.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Then I have some pita breads here,
Wonderful.
sitting here. They're not homemade. I'm proud of always making everything by myself. And yesterday I tested to make some pita breads, and did not really work out. I
Okay,
think
that's fine.
it's kind of like you have to do quite a few times to make it puffy, nice
Yep.
pita bread. And I didn't want
Yep.
to just serve something average, so I thought I'll get really nice pita breads from the shop. And then tomatoes here, I marinated them they are from Isle of Wight, actually. I
So
love this.
I was going to ask you that because my older daughter lives on the Isle of Wight.
Ah, okay. So
And
you
I've seen
recognize
that.
all
I
the
recognize
colors.
the colorful tomatoes. Yeah.
Yeah, so
Beautiful.
I ordered them, and then the skin is off them. It's been peeled off.
Yep.
So you kind of blanch them in the hot water, then the skin peels off really nicely.
Yep.
And in here, it's equal quantities of rice vinegar and mirin. So it's a Japanese
Okay.
recipe,
Yes.
actually.
Delicious.
it's sound, but it's a much milder marinated flavor than if you use the
Okay.
real apple cider vinegar or
Yep.
what do you call wine vinegar, for example. So it adds mirin, adds the sweetness, and so on. And then I'll just chop these up, and then everything will go into your pita bread. And here I have a slow, marinated
wonderful.
slow as
Yeah.
well with coriander,
Lovely.
spring onions from my garden,
Wonderful.
which are alive. Nobody ate them. And then here I have yogurt,
Yep.
Greek yogurt, 100% Greek yogurt with coriander and mint and some tahini in there,
Beautiful.
and olive oil and salt, pepper.
Fantastic.
It's all quite healthy,
Yes.
quite nutritional, and I hope
Absolutely.
will boost you for the day and for
I'm
your
sure it will.
other part
I'm
of the
looking
day.
forward to it.
Thank you. So I'll read your first message. By the way, when I read this message, as I mentioned to you when we met this morning, when I get my guests and I read their profile and their experience, I'm always very curious. I quickly scroll down in the form and find the messages, and I was quite surprised because it made me think straight away. David is a very spiritual person.
Yes.
And when you see certain people from certain careers like business, loads of success, you don't expect that. At least in the older days, you really meet spiritual people in the business world. Every time it's more kind of like a strong mind. So when I saw your messages, I was like, oh, this is lovely. This is going to bring that angle that I'm living about.
Excellent.
So this is just perfection. So without further ado, let's get on.
Okay.
So the first message is, we are spiritual beings having a human experience. Tell me more about it.
In 2012, my parents came to visit us for my 50th birthday, which was wonderful. And 3 weeks later, my dad had an accident and fell down a flight of stairs, broke his neck, and never recovered. So I got on a flight to Vancouver and was there before he died. And when he died, the family was around his bed, and that just opened my mind. You know, he'd been on breathing devices, and the nurse came in and took the tube out of his throat, and the color just drained out of his flesh and his chest sunk. But he was lying in bed like this, and he reached up like this, and my mum and my sister grabbed his hands, and he squeezed their hands, and then he went back like this, and he was gone. Wow. And to me, that was just like, okay, there's something more going on here. And so I started reading, and I started going to lectures, and I started learning about stuff. And interestingly, maybe 6 months later, I came across a book by a guy called Mike Dooley, who writes the Notes to the Universe. You may have come across those. And what really hit me at the beginning of the book was that Mike Dooley trained as a CPA with PwC and moved with PwC internationally at the same time as I did. And all of a sudden here we've connected, and I've since been to a couple of Mike Dooley events and met him and spoken to him and talked about our experiences with PwC and spirituality. And to me, that connection enabled me to really absorb what he had to say. And then I came across other practitioners and other people, and I've gone to lots of seminars and done a lot of meditation. And yes, I've come to believe that we are spiritual beings, and we happen to be having a human experience right now. And when this one's done and we're gone, we'll go off into the ether, and in some way we'll come back again, and maybe we'll be a tree next time, or a dog, or who knows, or still people. I don't know. But I do believe that we have this ability, this life is precious, but this isn't the only life that as spiritual beings we will ever have. That's my view.
Yeah, and I completely agree. And it's quite interesting because we're quite similar to that extent. And I cover a lot of that on my various other Mindset Kitchen shows with other guests, because when my husband passed away, it opened something within me, and then I went on some sort of discovery journey. Mm-hmm. I did not think anything about the other world or spiritual world. I just had nothing about it. So I was really open-minded to see what's out there. And when my husband passed away, he reached through to me and he called me, and I knew he's here.
Yep.
It was that knowing, it was unshakable. I was 100%
absolutely
so sure.
Yeah.
And so COVID came afterwards. So the next year or so, I was on that journey of, like you say, I was reading nonstop, joining various Zoom calls where spiritual people,
Yep.
mediumships, had mediumship lessons. I wanted to connect myself with him. I went to talk to him to see he's okay.
Yep.
And however bonkers or woo-woo it sounds to some of the people who are listening or watching us today, I found him, I spoke to him, and he's alongside me in this life.
Wonderful.
I just don't.
You don't see or feel him.
Yeah. However, I know
you feel him
here.
in your gut.
Yes, here in my gut, and I mean, he sends hundreds of signs all the time. So yeah. I also know that he's here, but that changes the way you live.
It does.
What did it do to you, really?
Well, I think, as you were saying that, one of the things that really struck me was my mum. So my mum lived for another 12 years after my dad passed away. She died last year. And my mum had lived her life by two maxims. One of them was, I want to do as much as I can for as long as I can. And the other one was that life is the best game in town. And all of a sudden, about 18 months ago, Mum started to develop some conditions. She was 94, and she just started, her body was basically saying, okay, I've had enough. And so we flew out and spent time with my brother and my two sisters with Mum, and she decided that this wasn't really what she wanted anymore. And I'm so grateful that Canada has an assisted dying program, and my mum was accepted onto that. And so we came back, and then we flew out for her final days, and it was the most beautiful thing, because first of all, she was able to reach out to people and say, I've been accepted into this assisted dying program. This is my last day. And normally when people die and then all of the eulogies come in afterwards, but she heard the love and the stories and the laughter and the friendship of all of these people that she'd known for all of her life. And she had, the year before, she had published her own memoir, just a sort of a family document, but she had done that. And I know that kept her going. And I think probably once that was done, then the body started to shut down, and then she left. And I remember sitting there, we were in her living room with her when the doctors came in and administered the drugs that led to her dying. And it was sad, but it was also really beautiful, because she had chosen to go, and we were there holding her hands. And I just felt love. That was what I felt. I just felt pure love. And when she was gone physically, I knew that she was still there. It's just her body was gone. And I've never gone to a medium to connect with anyone, but I talk to my mum and my dad all the time.
And they hear
you. We brought back, because they both died in Canada, and their ashes are spread in Canada together. But we brought back little vials from each of Mum and Dad, and we have them at a specific spot in Kew Gardens. And we go there all the time to just go by and talk to them.
It's such a beautiful way, and thank you for sharing such a personal life story as well. It's beautiful because death normally is accepted or looked at in such a, I don't want to talk about it, it hurts. This is not right, this shouldn't be happening, and all sort of negative emotions around it. And to have such a peaceful understanding about death and actually choosing your time to go as well, it allows you kind of be in charge of it all the way to the end, which is really beautiful. And I was just having goosebumps the entire time as you were telling, because I would love for all of us to perhaps use more the spiritual side of all of us rather than the human side. And
I think the world would be a better place.
Right? So I would like to ask this question: how did your business and mindset towards business and the way you live your life afterwards change?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think
maybe examples where...
Yeah, sure. No. So as I said, I'd launched this wine business, and that hadn't worked. It was after the wine business. It was after my parents had come for my birthday, and then my dad had passed away, and I thought, okay, I've got to get my life back on track. So that was, that was all part of it. I think that was kind of, as I refer to it, that was the kick up the bum that I needed. I wouldn't say that I consciously put it into my business, but I've definitely changed the way I interact with people. And I found I became less confrontational when there was a conflict, and was much more open to, okay, let me listen to what the other side has to say, because maybe I did get it wrong, and let's just, let's hear their side of the story. And the other key thing that's changed is I've become much more giving. So in my business now, we give 1% of our turnover, and we do it every quarter, to charitable causes that are in support of either UN Global Goal 4, which is quality education, or Global Goal 5, which is gender equality. And there's an organization that we give through, it's called B1G1. And they've got charities around the world that are aligned to the UN Global Goals. And you can just go online and pick. And so in our latest one, we gave training to women in Africa on business skills. We gave them training in, I think it was in India, to women in accounting skills. And we did something else in, I think, Bangladesh, where we gave bicycles to children so that they could cycle to school. And just things like that. And so every quarter I get together with my team and we say, okay, have a look on the site, which causes do we want to support now? And that just, that makes you feel good, and to, just to give a little bit back. And it's really funny. 2 weeks ago, I was in central London, and I was walking along Wimpole Street, and there were several people begging, and I had my headphones in. I was listening to a podcast or something. I don't remember. Not yours, I'm afraid. But,
Not yet.
Not yet. But I was walking along, and then all of a sudden I just stopped and looked at this woman, and I thought, she has nothing, and I've got a pretty good life. And I just reached into my pocket, and I gave her a £10 note, and she just went, oh, bless you, and all of that. In the next half hour, I was walking, as I'd been walking from Fitzrovia area over towards Marble Arch. So it was a longish walk. And in the next half hour, twice people stopped me in the street and said, there's light coming out of you.
Wow.
I had no idea, but these people saw it.
Wow.
Yeah.
You see what happens.
Yeah.
So the wonderful example, by the way, thank you, because my life has completely changed as well. And in a way, not completely changed. Well, actually, after someone close to you dies, generally everything changes completely. My
Yes.
job, my location, my house, everything. But what it has done to me, it made me look within and make myself more, what's the word I'm looking for? It's almost like I started to master myself. I started to master my behavior, my attitude,
Right.
my views, my beliefs. It's almost everything came out of me, and I looked at it and decided who I wanted to be.
Right.
And it was to be a better person for myself, for my family, to be kind, caring, all of those attributes that we have, but we don't necessarily consciously decide to do it. And my intention was to react less to little things that they don't bother me anymore so much.
Yeah.
To be, if someone is angry at you, well, don't be angry back. Just understand why the person is angry. And little things like that allowed me to almost to be in charge of everything. And it was my way of making a choice. And I realized I have that choice.
You do.
To react however I want to go, where I want to do, and the way I behave. And I think, how I always say, the death of someone so close brings so much to your life, more than you ever expected. And in my view, I only decided to choose positives.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so your examples as well, showing how much more intentionally than we delve within and want to give.
One of the people that I saw speak wasn't someone that you would associate with being a spiritual person, but he had a fantastic message. And that was Steve Wozniak, who's the co-founder of Apple. He was the technical genius where Steve Jobs was the kind of the marketing and product genius. And Steve Wozniak was talking about happiness. And he said, happiness doesn't depend on how big your company is, or how many people work for you, or how big your house is. He said, happiness is about how you feel in the world. And he said, now, being a technical geek, I came up with a formula for happiness. H equals S minus F, where H is happiness, S is smiles, and F is frowns. And he said, and the beautiful thing is, no matter what happens in your life, you get to decide if you smile or frown. So
that's it.
Why not be happy?
I totally agree. And there are so many things. At the end of the day, you will still go and find a solution. You will still. So why to waste your energy and all of those things? So I think your message, that obviously now going to go to another one, which will explain really well how our thoughts and feelings dictate and shape our realities. But being spiritual rather than the human part is, I think, what we should all focus on. And then there are so many little beautiful diamonds in there that you can pick out and choose who you want to be in this world. It's never too late.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so thank you for, I absolutely enjoyed chatting about this. And I know I'm keeping the time, because I could chat about this forever and ever. And I know the more examples and stories would come out. But I'm going to shortly read your message number 2, but I will put lamb patties now to fry. So it's going to, for the people who are watching now, who are listening, it's going to make a little sizzling sound, and the smells that David will only be able to smell. Ow, I nearly burnt my finger. Yeah, the chef, but I've got asbestos fingers, so it's always fine. And then shortly I will start heating up pita breads as well. So
Okay.
I put them on the pan.
Oh, great. Yeah.
You can heat them in the microwave so they become really soft. But what happens is then the things start falling apart.
Yeah.
So the second message is, as Viktor Frankl said, between stimulus and response, there is a space and time in which we are free to choose our response.
Yes.
Somehow we were almost talking about that.
We were, and I knew that was coming, but yeah. So one of the books that I read when I started my spiritual journey was Viktor Frankl's book, Man's Search for Meaning. Mm-hmm. It's just a teeny tiny book. And anyone who's interested in this field, if they haven't read it, I highly recommend it. So Viktor Frankl was a Jewish prisoner of war in World War II. And he came to the realization that no matter what was done to him by his captors, he could choose how to respond.
Wow, yeah.
And he was able, no matter, and terrible things were done to him, but he was able to not respond. And by not responding, he had mastery over himself. And in fact, in the book, he talks about how some of the guards really struggled with this because they were so used to a certain reaction when someone was being beaten or whatever, and he wasn't reacting. And he said one of the guards said to him at one point, "You are the freest man in this camp." He then, after the war ended, he was released, and he went on to found a school of psychology in Austria, but that whole thing, and it's like Steve Wozniak says, no matter what's happening, you can decide if you smile or if you frown, and it's just a split second. And take an everyday example, like you're driving along the street and someone cuts you up, or I guess they were in a hurry. I've found that when we're stuck in traffic, I still get upset sometimes, and we do. We're human beings, and that happens. But I've found that when we get stuck in traffic, I'm a lot less uptight than I used to be. I still verbalize it. Sometimes my wife gets mad at me because, "Oh, you stupid idiot." But I actually find just the verbalization just gets it out, and then it's gone. But there'll be other times where we're driving along, and all of a sudden you're on the motorway, and queue ahead, caution, and you're stuck there, and you move 100 meters in 10 minutes, and it's like, ugh. And I just think there is absolutely nothing that I can do about it. So why get angry? Just it is,
It's one of the favorite things, favorite, let's say, I don't know, quotes or messages that I live by, and for others to also live by like that, I am the example. So I do that within my family, especially towards reacting in some way. Mm-hmm. Very recently, we just went to Crete, and my partner, he forgot to bring the car that he paid, I think, for the car rental. And we came absolutely tired. We left 6 a.m. It was 4 p.m. in there. We had 2 hours drive, hot, tired, one shower, and then we had to wait another 3 hours for the bank to sort out the things.
Oh, nightmare.
And I had that stimulus part where I could just be absolutely furious at him for being so disorganized, not checking.
And mad at the car rental people because...
Just why can't you take any other cars? And I just said, well, let's just find to get some drinks, some food somewhere. And the airport was horrific as well. There's not a single seat to sit down, and it crammed, people everywhere. It wasn't the nicest place to relax. But I chose to not say anything, and
Fantastic.
I chose to be almost comforting him. It happens.
Absolutely.
What we gonna do now about it? Nothing.
It's okay.
Let's just go get a glass of wine and relax.
Yeah, exactly.
And I was so proud of myself.
Wonderful.
Inside. But because for the next 20 minutes in my head, I was still, oh, God, this is so annoying.
Yeah, it happens.
But I just come on, and nothing's gonna change.
That's part of the human condition. Those thoughts will go in your head, and you can either choose to let them take control, or you can just leave them be. Now, for the benefit of the people who aren't in the room, I can tell you it's starting to smell delicious.
I love the smell as well.
It's fabulous.
I practiced them. I cooked them yesterday actually, so I know exactly the smell that was coming your way. But talking about that, I think it's not the easiest thing to do because the reaction is quite quick to many of the things. As you say, the car is a special example. Understanding what it does within you for the rest of your day, it's also a big deal.
Yeah.
Your energy changes. Then
it does.
You affect others. So it could be your partner, your children get also affected. The whole day could be kind of like not really nice.
Yeah.
But our day turned out to still be nice.
Yep.
And the bank cleared it much quicker. We managed to sort it out within an hour. So actually, imagine if I was angry and it's actually just one hour wait. What would I be?
And the funny thing is, if you had been angry, that would have sent out ripples through the universe.
Exactly.
And the bank would have had a system problem, and it might have taken 4 hours.
I believe in that.
Yeah.
I believe in exactly that. And we found a seat, the last table in the cafe. With that positive attitude, mindset, and energy, I think our route onwards was so much more pleasant. Yeah. And I think when you get opportunity to choose, which is a split moment, it comes having that awareness.
Yes.
Awareness that, oh, this is the moment where I can choose.
Exactly. Yeah.
And many times we forget that moment and react. I think it's normal for us humans to just get angry quickly.
Yep.
Makes us feel better, makes us punish this other person who's done wrong. It's his fault as well. It's also, blaming someone. But my way is being a team. You are here together, so might as well be a team.
Well, as you know, a couple of weeks ago, I was in Corfu for my daughter's wedding. And I was doing the father of the bride's speech, and I forgot one piece of my speech. And as we're both public speakers, I never write my speech out. I just know in my head what I'm going to say. And I get to the end, and it's like, I forgot that bit. And then I'm like beating myself up inside. But all these people are coming up to me saying, oh, that was a fabulous speech, really enjoyed it, wasn't it so good? And when I'm teaching young speakers and I say, oh, if you forget something or if you flub your words, don't worry about it because nobody else knows what you're going to say. Just carry on. And there I was beating myself up. And then everybody came up and said, great speech, well done. And it's just like, okay, gone, done.
Exactly. So that reaction, a choice, it's actually, if I was to be a guest, one of my messages would be, you always have that choice.
Yeah.
To how to react to things. Everything else changes from your reaction.
Absolutely.
I think there's a little formula that I've learned somewhere. Reaction plus action, something equals outcome or something. So every time action plus reaction equals outcome.
Equals outcome.
So every time reaction changes, the outcome changes.
The outcome changes.
So what kind of outcome do you want to have?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, in an hour and 2. Well, I want to be happy. Okay.
Yeah.
So what's your action right now? Well, I'm not going to be angry. I'm going to be happy instead.
Yeah.
So that story about the person in the camp, for him to choose that in that scenario is unbelievable because we choosing little things like not to shout on a car driver next to us, and he had to choose to be happy and smiling and being positive about someone who's doing so much harm to him. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
And definitely a person to learn from.
Definitely.
Because
definitely.
The guards will get annoyed for sure.
Yeah.
And I find as well, people do get annoyed. Why are you not angry at this person? What's in it for me?
Yeah.
And people get slightly puzzled. So thank you for bringing this message.
Pleasure.
It's beautiful.
Thank you.
So what we're having here, lamb cutlets are nearly done. So what I will do now is I'll start chopping these tomatoes.
Which look
for
gorgeous.
You, David. I love colors in cooking. So to me, the more colors, the more appetizing. So now what I'm doing here, for the next 30 seconds, I'm enticing your taste buds and your mind now is trying to think this is going to be delicious. It might not even be delicious, but you're preparing your mind for it. So what I will do, I'll cut them slightly so they just fit nicely in your pita bread.
Beautifully.
Do you cook yourself a lot, by the way?
I do.
Yeah?
I do cook.
What's your favorite meal? Would you have a favorite?
My signature dish is risotto.
Risotto?
Yes.
What type?
all
Or
types.
any,
But yeah,
okay.
when we moved to Switzerland, I was assigned a buddy, a local guy who worked for PwC, and he happened to be from the Ticino, which is the Italian part of Switzerland. And we went down one weekend to visit him and his family, and his mother taught me how to make risotto her way, so which had been a way passed down from the family for hundreds of years. And so I probably make 3 or 4 main risotto dishes. My main one is kind of a typical Milanese, so just with wine and saffron.
Delicious.
I do smoked salmon and asparagus, which goes really nice. And I do one that we had at a restaurant in Ticino, which is fabulous, which is fresh pears
and risotto.
and gorgonzola cheese.
Oh, okay, so fresh pears and gorgonzola cheese definitely goes.
Fabulous.
So, but you put it on risotto.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. So you cut up the gorgonzola cheese and put that into the risotto with maybe 5 minutes left, and then you cut the pears and serve them on top of the risotto as you serve it.
Oh, okay. This is something to
And
try.
sometimes I cook the pear, depending on how ripe they are. If they're a bit firm, I'll cook them very gently in a red wine sauce.
Oh my God,
Yeah.
you're making me really hungry, and I want
Yep.
to try that recipe. I actually like combinations of fruit and vegetable. It's kind of becoming quite big now. Before people be like, oh well, pineapple on a pizza is strange, but this is totally different. For example, you put plums or pears as well, watermelon and with cheese, or grapes with bacon and watercress. There's also
We had, when we were in Corfu, we had several watermelon salads. So watermelon and feta cheese and fresh mint and some seeds and fabulous. And on a hot, and you know how hot it gets there. And it's so cool and refreshing and there's so much liquid and it's just, fabulous. Love it.
wow, yes. Okay. This is cooling down a little bit, so you can enjoy at the perfect temperature, David. And I'm going to read your third and final message.
Okay.
Our mindset and our thoughts create the world that we experience. Again, very similarly, now we touched upon it. So tell me a little bit more about it.
This is a particular view that came across from a guy that I started reading about. His name was Sydney Banks. What's interesting is, so Sydney Banks grew up in Scotland, and he left school at the end or even in the middle of year 9, so not even a full education, and went to Canada and ended up in the part of Canada where I grew up, and he worked as a welder in a lumber mill. And one day he had an enlightenment experience and came up with this realization, and he's written several books and all that. So, anyone who's interested can look into that. But one of the things that he talked about was that basically whatever you're experiencing comes into your mind. And again, you have that moment between stimulus and response to decide. And so if you take the view, let's say you're in a bad mood and it's raining and the kids are stroppy and you're stressed at work, well, everything's going to be bad. But if you just take the view that, okay, well, it's raining today, but that's good for the garden. And yeah, there's a lot going on at work right now, but that's okay because I know it's the weekend coming up and we'll get through this and all of that. And if you can just take a different perspective, and again, try and be happy. Yeah, sure, life gets busy. I mean, I run my own business. I mean, I work 7 days a week, not full time, 7 days a week, but I'm doing something every day. It was great when I went to Corfu for the wedding and a little holiday. My team said, you are not to go on email. We've got this. If there's anything that's an emergency, Letitia, who's my PA, will message you on WhatsApp and say this needs to be dealt with. Apart from that, you're not to do any work. And it was fantastic. That's probably the first time in a long, long time where I've literally had 10 days off. And it was magnificent. I really, really enjoyed that. And just being able to kind of take that view were there things that could have taken my attention? Yeah, sure they were. But I've got a team of people and they know how to deal with it. And in fact, what Letitia said to me was anytime anything came up that was urgent, she just responded to whoever had sent the message and just said, David's in Corfu, it's his daughter's wedding. Does this need to be action now, or can it wait until he's back? And I think there was one thing that needed to be actioned, and everything else was able to wait until I was back.
I think with this, there are so many other angles that come up to me as you sharing your experience. It's choosing as well to pay attention at that thought. For me, for example, I know if my thoughts will create my reality, what is the reality that I really want to have?
Yes.
It could be tomorrow, could be 1 month, 1 year time from now, or 5 years. And thinking the exact thought and exactly what you want, not reacting to really what's happening and thinking, well, obviously this is not going to go well now. Still thinking it's going to go well.
Yep.
All of these little things, little thoughts that you will incorporate will definitely shape that experience and that reality. And I am a big believer of it, because that's what's been happening for me since my husband's death. My past 4 years is really exactly how I want to live.
Yeah.
And I wake up and many times I have maybe a bad thought and like, oh, is that what I want to have?
Exactly.
Is that what I believe? No.
Yeah.
That's just that, what I call it on the left side, that's just little voice that telling me,
Yeah.
don't know anything.
Yeah.
It's just a little voice, go away. I want this and I'm happy. So choose to be happy. I am going to do, like for example, today, I've never met you. I don't know what energy we will have. So, so many times, thankfully it didn't happen to me, but people meet and like, oh, I don't really know. It wasn't really comfortable or awkward, right? So I woke up and like, I'm going to have a great time with David. I am going to cook delicious meal. Everything is going well. It's actually a present tense that I also use. It's going well.
Yes.
We're having a great time.
Yes.
It's exactly how I wanted. And I mean, 45 minutes gone on so far, so good.
Exactly.
Yes, so I do believe in that as well. And how does that influence as well your decisions in business?
Well, it makes conflict easier. It makes difficult decisions easier. It's you can approach something thinking, oh, this is going to be really hard, or you can approach something thinking, okay, I've never done this before, but I'm going to learn something from it. You can approach it thinking, oh, I don't like this person, they're going to be horrible and all that. Or you can approach it thinking, I don't really know this person, but let's see what comes out of the conversation. And I just feel that, having an open mind and being willing to see what happens changes everything, and therefore your mindset and the way you go into a situation. And sure, sometimes things will happen. While you were speaking, an example came to mind. There was a particular business I was working with about 5 years ago, and there was a dispute with an employee, and it started to turn a bit ugly. And I remember waking up in the middle of the night and just thinking, oh, this is terrible, and I'm really worried about this, and da-da-da. And then I just thought, you know what? It is bad, but there's nothing I can do about it at 3 o'clock in the morning.
No.
So I've just got to let it go, and I'll deal with it when I'm in the office in the morning, and I'll sort this out and just take it from there.
Exactly. And I think having that calm kind of attitude and awareness towards it, your rest of the day, I think, will also be really nice.
Yeah.
And that's just how it happens to me all the time.
Now, I was quite stressed on Monday because it was my first day back after 10 days off. And I had a couple of big things that had to be dealt with. So I was a bit, okay, got to get this done. But I also thought, I got to get this done. But I know I've got the time to get it done. I know I've got the information I need to deal with. I know what it's going to do. I just have to stay focused and I'll be fine.
And that worked.
It did. I was still stressed, particularly on Monday. I was still stressed. And I ended up working quite late on Monday. But by the end of the day on Tuesday, and I had said I have to do these two things by close of play Tuesday, And by close of play Tuesday, they were done.
How much more difference it makes when you have these mindsets and you
Yeah.
have these things you live by.
Yeah. As opposed to just being, oh my God, there's so much stress, I can't deal with it.
I really
And I don't wish to sound uncaring. I know people are in stressful situations, but if they can just try and calm down that mindset. I read a fascinating study a few years ago that was looking at overstressed executives. And what they found, and psychologists have known this for years, and is that the human mind can typically carry about 7 things going on at the same time and deal with them.
7.
7. And they analyzed these overstressed executives and found that they had 8 or 9 things that were going on. And they were just like, I can't control, there's too much going on.
Yeah.
And all they had to do was drop 1 or 2 of them, and all of a sudden they were back in control. So, yeah, it's
Well,
interesting.
It is interesting, and for me, it's really how I live. In these messages, I think they all really nicely connect to each other, and I hope viewers, and majority of the viewers, I know they're already quite spiritual, and if people are watching what I talk about, I think people realize that I am a quite spiritual person, and having these in your written down somewhere and keep practicing, and then it just becomes kind of like you. It becomes the normality. I don't know any other way.
Yeah.
And that's what happened to me. I feel like, well, this is who I am now, and that's how I think, and that's how I want to make my life better. And I know that where you mentioned that ripple effect really goes far along, and people notice, firstly in your family, then your friends, and then strangers commenting on seeing the light around you.
That was crazy.
That's fascinating.
That was crazy.
So, what I've been doing here while you've been
Yes,
talking,
I'm looking.
I was thinking these pitas could be much bigger, because I would
they
love
look
to stuff
fabulous.
more and more, but there is more. So what I'm going to do, I've got some potato veggies that I've earlier cooked, because what it is, I think it's when you have a pita bread, and I've got this is sun-dried tomato and yogurt dip with a bit of really crunchy potato, and then some pita bread. It just has that completion. So just before you arrive, these finished cooking, so they are warm. I use my air fryer a lot.
Yeah.
And I wanted to cook them now to avoid the sounds and buzzes that it comes with the air fryer, which I sometimes use, but sometimes I make a conscious decision to kind of like, you know what, I'll just cook them right away. Right, so I'm serving this for you, David. Pita breads, stuffed with lamb, slaw, pickled tomatoes. Ooh, falling over. How do I present this nicer? It's not gonna work.
It's beautiful.
There you go.
Thank you.
I hope you enjoy.
Oh, looks fabulous.
This is probably majority is you won't probably need the fork and
I was just thinking exactly that.
And feel free to use your hands, because I just put them there.
Wonderful.
Just to be polite. So,
wonderful.
Thank you so much, David,
My
for
pleasure.
bringing these messages, for coming over and sparing your time to me and our audience here. Really appreciate having you here, and it was wonderful to discuss these messages, absolutely close to my heart. I also wanted to introduce your other book alongside Ed and Multiply's Funded Female Founders, which I know we didn't really get a chance to speak much about it, but I know you really are invested in this, and I saw your talk about it as well. And I guess I want to say thank you for this.
My pleasure.
We all need that help.
We do. Yep,
I really appreciate you. And I haven't read this book yet, but this is the book that I would like to read, because essentially it's probably applicable to me as well.
I think so. Yeah.
In terms of me finding Minds in Kitchen and other ventures that I have
Absolutely.
planned. So
wonderful.
thank you so much.
My pleasure.
For the
Thank
book.
you. Thank you.
And I'll put all your details on the website.
Okay.
For anyone who want to get in touch with David.
Terrific.
Thank you so much.
Cheers.
Thank you for watching and listening to us, and have a good day.